Hi everyone, this is Mark Buckles for New Mexico State University Carlsbad. This VoiceThread PowerPoint presents ideas on the self, with an emphasis on self-disclosure and a discussion of the self's role in perception. Among the goals in Learning Module 2 are to learn about the nature and processes of perception, to learn about self-concept, self-awareness, and to begin to learn to communicate from a better understanding of who you might be. Let's consider the role of self-concept in human communication. Your self-concept is how you perceive yourself to be. It is your perception of your own strengths and weaknesses. As we consider the sources of those perceptions, we take into account others' images of ourselves, our own interpretations and evaluations, often influenced by experience, our cultural teachings and social comparisons, the process in which we compare ourselves to those around us. DeVito discusses a phenomenon called the looking glass self. The looking glass self is the image you have of yourself that results from the image those around you have of you. Such perceptions contribute to our self-awareness. The Johari window is a well-known diagram that represents the contents of the self. You'll see that the diagram divides the self's contents into 4 areas. The first area of consideration is labeled the open self. The open self represents all the material of the self that is known to you and to others. For the most part, contents from the open self are free of shame and guilt and contain the realities of your identity, easily apprehended by all. In contrast to the open self is the blind self. The blind self represents the materials of the self that are unknown to you, but are known to others. In contrast to the open and blind selves is the unknown self. The unknown self represents the energies and potentialities of the self unknown both to ourselves and to others. These potentialities may be revealed in time, and are perhaps communicated through dreams and hypnosis and supported by brain research. Finally, and quite importantly, is the hidden self. The hidden self represents the materials of the self we ourselves are aware of, but are largely unknown to others. The hidden self is related to self-disclosure, and can be a source of psychic energy and charisma, or become burdensome and weighty. We are told that as one area of the Johari window increases, the size of the other areas is affected. Thus, although interrelated, the diagram appears to present the self as finite, at least until we consider the possibilities represented by the unknown self. The diagram also appears to communicate that as the open self expands and the other areas decrease, we gain in individuation. Now, to increase the open self and to grow in self-awareness or consciousness, we are told to listen to others' perceptions about ourselves, to actively seek more information about ourselves, and to dialogue with ourselves in honesty and self-reflection. Self-esteem, or how we feel about ourselves and how valuable we are as people, can be enhanced by attacking self-destructive beliefs, by seeking out nourishing companions, by working on projects that will allow us to succeed, and by accentuating the positive and affirming to ourselves our own value. Self-disclosure reveals to others what is usually kept to ourselves. Appropriate self-disclosure is a source of our charisma and our interest to other people, as well as an activity important to our well-being. Self-disclosure takes a number of forms in our lives, from overt statements and confessions to more unconscious expressions of contents from the hidden self. Your culture, your gender, your audience, and your topic, as well as the channel available to you to communicate your message, are all factors in self-disclosure. In fact, personality and temperament may make you more or less of a self-expresser. The dyadic effect is an important concept in human communication. The dyadic effect simply maintains that a person is more likely to self-disclose when the person he or she is with self-discloses. Rewards and guidelines exist for making appropriate self-disclosures. When we self-disclose appropriately, we gain in self-knowledge and improve our coping abilities. Our relationships are made more meaningful, and communication is enhanced. Still, you should dialogue with yourself as to your motivation for self-disclosing, and to the burdens your disclosure might bring to another or to yourself. Of course, self-disclosures run certain risks. Remember that, as with any communication, self-disclosure is irreversible. Finally, let's consider responding to self-disclosure. Effective and active listening is a respectful and powerful response. Ethics matter. One would keep disclosures confidential and not use the disclosures against the person disclosing. On the other hand, don't be pushed into disclosing if you believe it is inappropriate to do so. Rather, practice gamesmanship and move the conversation to another topic. If indirection doesn't work, assert your refusal to disclose. Let's consider perception now. Learning Module 2's second area of interest. Perception is the process by which we make sense of the world. As physical creatures, first the senses are stimulated and the perception is organized. The perception becomes part of our memories as we interpret and evaluate it. Let's discuss the stages of perception as presented in DeVito. First, the principle of selective attention tells us we attend to those things we anticipate will fulfill our needs or prove enjoyable. Next, we should remember that we actively seek out communication that supports our opinions and beliefs, and avoid those that contradict these opinions and beliefs. Mental templates or schemata help us organize our perceptions, and scripts exist within us that govern our expectations as to how occurrences should unfold. Schemata and scripts function as rules we feel uneasy to break. Consequently, the perception process is subjective. We interpret and evaluate experiences based on previous experiences, and on the present identity we bring to an experience. Perceptions and their interpretations and evaluations are stored in memory, and unless we actively work to expand consciousness, standing scripts and schemata are further reinforced and perceptions remain subjective. Finally, it's important to know that our memories for experiences are reconstructive, not reproductive. We tend to reconstruct what we've heard in ways already meaningful to us. We recall information-consistent schemas and fail to recall what's inconsistent. On the other hand, to recall information that drastically contradicts an existing schema may force us into a revision of schemas and into extensions of consciousness. Now, let's move into consideration of Learning Module 2's last subjects: personality theory, self-fulfilling prophecy, primacy and recency, and attribution of control. So we perceive with what DeVito calls personality theory. That is, we perceive with rules that inform us as to which characteristics of personality go with others. We perceive with a halo effect. Positive qualities we've observed cause us to infer other positive qualities we've not observed. And of course, in the reverse halo effect, the opposite takes place in regard to negative qualities in people. We influence our perceptions through the self-fulfilling prophecy. In fact, we can go so far as to make a prediction come true because we act on it as if it were true. We've all had the experience where we can't help satisfying another's expectations about us, although we know in our heart of hearts we're not that way at all. The law of primacy and recency influences perception as well. It's human nature that the first impressions and the most recent impressions can quite easily trump our other perceptions of a person or situation. In perceiving, and especially in evaluating other people's behaviors, we frequently ask ourselves if she or he was in control of the behavior. We try to explain the reason or the motivation for the behavior, that is, were the motivations internal or external. As we analyze our perceptions in the light of what we know now about human tendencies, we can increase our accuracy of perception. We can reduce uncertainty by checking our perceptions against those of others, by observing the focus of our perceptions in a variety of situations, and quite importantly, by increasing our cultural sensitivity. This concludes Learning Module 2's PowerPoint lecture on the aspect of the self and perception. Next time we'll consider nonverbal communication, its channels and messages.